I'm Gerald Bentley. This is Wrestling with Sales. Today, we are joined by a great guest to talk about something that everyone who's dealing in car sales management is facing right now, a changing, unprecedented used car market. Joined by the Vice President of Sales for VinCue, Jeremy Bravard. Jeremy, thanks for stepping in the ring here.
Absolutely. So glad to be on the show, Gerald.
Yeah, and I've been able to use VinCue now for a few years. I think got in on it pretty early, kind of towards the ground floor.
Yep.
And something that I think really sets VinCue apart is an innovative nature, because you're still working on making changes, you're adapting. You're looking at a market that's gone through just a crazy amount of changes in the last few years. And as opposed to a lot of programs, no names, no names, but what happens a lot is once an automotive software company that was innovative, dynamic, game-changing, if you want to say, they get bought out by one of the big boys, and then the innovation, the dynamism, just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
That's something that you're actively fighting against.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of our, I would say, hugest or biggest advantages is a lot of the groups that we talked to in the past that really weren't apt to moving off that big player, or what we call the established leader. Mm-hmm. So don't need to mention names, but the feedback we get is the dealer has a voice, and they didn't have that before. So as you mentioned, some of these big companies, they get so big. I've worked at a couple of them, and they stop listening to their customers. And I think that's when you stop listening to the end user and the dealer, it's a sinking ship. So it's only a matter of time before another company that's hungry and wants market share and wants to start to innovate and change with the market. So we were fortunate. So I was with Chris Hoke, our CEO, who's our lead CTO. Mm-hmm. He was one of the primary coders for the CRM VinSolutions.
Yep.
So I was able to work with him for many years, and now we've been together for 3 years here now. So we disrupted when we built VinSolutions, and now we're disrupting with VinCue.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people watching this would realize it, that Kansas City has been one of the hubs really nationally for automotive software. VinSolutions from here.
Yep.
There's a big presence with Cox Automotive divisions here. You guys are out of here. Auto Alert. I mean, I think you're.
Yep. ProMax.
VinCue and Auto Alert and ProMax are probably a 10-minute walk from each other in downtown Kansas City.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's the Silicon Valley. It's a tad more expensive to operate a SaaS company in San Francisco compared to the Midwest. So I feel like a lot of these companies are kind of figuring that out pretty quickly, and realizing that the cost of living and the pay and the cost of just doing business in general is much cheaper here in the Midwest. And I think you've got to in this, especially in Kansas City. As you know, I mean, we've got a lot of dealerships, and there are a lot of, so why not start stationing your businesses in a city where, I mean, you've got you're at Toyota. How many Toyota stores do we have in the 45-mile radius?
Yeah, I mean, you've got 9 Toyota dealers if you extend the metro out to Topeka and St. Joe.
Yeah.
You have probably 16 Ford dealerships, just as many Chevy dealerships. So yeah, it's a good test market to build from and then establish out. So with VinCue, just to kind of get into it, you have your basic core function, your core products.
Yep.
And that's essentially used car inventory management. You can also do new car inventory management, right?
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, we're a data company. So we built a data foundation, and then on top of it sits our inventory management, appraisal, auction, sourcing, all in one spot. So what we were realizing, when we decided to compete with some of these bigger companies as just a little startup, is you had basically just software after software after login just bridged together, where it kind of works, but when we start bridging software together, it's different code, it's written by different coders, and we see issues. So when we decided to come to market, we wanted to really just consolidate a lot of those. I mean, I go to the stores all the time because I spent 7 years selling cars, and I'll go to Van Chevrolet and hang out with my buddies, and he's got 4 monitors up. He's got Stockwave, he's got Viato, he's got all these products across multiple monitors, and I'm like, I don't I don't see how you do this efficiently, but
all that only sort of talk to each other on a very, very loose basis.
Correct.
Generally speaking, there's one login, that's it, but the programs don't really interact with each other. And it's a good way to miss things, good way to make mistakes. Heck, to get to the wrestling theme, and you amateur wrestled, you want to simplify things. You want to make it easy, so you can have repetition. You can do things quickly, efficiently. That's how you can go for a win. When you start spreading things out and you have to go to 8 or 9 different sites, and then, okay, well, hey, I need this auction login to buy this car, and then I need to do the transportation this way, and I'm going to take that, put it to the DMS, and then the DMS is going to go to the CRM. Then the CRM, this one doesn't have a desking program, so I have to desk it in something else. But that desking program doesn't really work with this DMS. So after I desk it, I'll load it into the, you haven't simplified anything. All the programs have done is make a job that was simple enough with a piece of paper and a Sharpie to write up a Ford square, and now made it requiring 5 or 6 logins to sell a car. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's and at the end of the day, every once in a while I'll come across that car guy, which is like, I spend enough time on that side of the business, and I know you have too, where at the end of the day, I mean, you give me the miles, I can, gander at the car, and you tell me the condition, I can get pretty close as far as the value. But I think what's important now, as far as, just appraisal technology, is these markets. I mean, I watched a 10 grand swing between Manheim and Kelly Blue Book on a Silverado, and if I'm back on the desk, like, what do I do? Throw a dart in the middle? It's like, So even more now so than ever with this market, I think it's important to have tools, and the tools that we provide are all market based tools. So all the data is, we don't own the auctions or anything like that. We aggregate the world. So we aggregate around 50,000 sites, dealer sites, auction sites, which is just real time data. Like, I don't really want to, corner myself with, Manheim data or something of that nature, where I'd like to just kind of look at everything and then pull that into the system. And what we found is a lot of dealers were just missing the ball with merchandising. That was a big one. So, the car was a one owner and went to church and back, where that's not what Google's looking for. So Google's looking for build data and specific paint codes and stuff like that. And what we've realized is as we explode these VINs, and we use multiple channels to explode VINs, and we aggregate all this data, is we're just putting more content out into the world, where these cars are coming up now on Google page 1 without having to advertise on all these third-party sites. And it's tremendously helping their bottom line, and they're starting to rely a lot less on these big conglomerate third-party sources that have, I think, been asleep at the wheel. And not to mention names, but there's a third party where they're rating the cars, good deal, bad deal, fair deal, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm paying you to advertise my car, and you're hammering it down. You're telling consumers that it's a bad deal. And a lot of those we started to look into, Gerald, and it was, the syndication was off. So it was like bad deal because they were missing the sunroof, or they were missing that FX4 package on an F-150, where it's like, that's $1,500. It's $2,000, from the factory, where then it's not such a bad deal. So,
well, and there's glitches too, and the bookouts, the VIN explosions, because if you have a Nissan, if you have a Toyota, if you have some Hondas, they don't explode properly. And there's Chevys that don't explode properly. You can have a custom, but it's a Trail Boss with a couple of enhancement packages. That's a huge difference. That's a $12,000 swing in the value of the truck. And if the VIN explosion says, oh no, it's a ST custom, it's worth nothing. The car really should be worth about $12,000 more, but then you're getting it knocked down at those rankings. And then the other problem that I think has been building for a few years between Auto Trader, here, what the heck, they're not sponsoring, Auto Trader, Cars.com, is they're tiering where the dealers show up,
Yep.
because you can buy your area, you can basically outkick your coverage and buy extra listing placements,
Yep.
which really defeats the purpose, because it's supposed to be, okay, this is your source to go make sure you're finding the right value on the car, but then you can pay your way up and jump ahead of it and get your inventory ranked higher if you just pay more.
Yep.
So it really defeats the purpose of even listing your inventory, because you're going to get buried unless you pay to play,
Yep.
which really is creating a problem. And it really leads dealerships back to building their own website, because that needs to be your best source.
Yep. Yeah,
As a dealer, you spend a lot of time buying cars at auction. If you're using Edge Pipeline to manage your purchases, then this is big news. Montway Auto Transport has partnered with Auction Edge to add a transportation option onto Edge Pipeline. Now dealers can manage their auction buys and book transportation with just one click, right in the Edge Pipeline platform. As a nationwide leader in auto transport, Montway understands a dealer's need for speed and efficiency, and can arrange single or multi-vehicle moves from auction to any lot in the country. With Montway's technology, dealers can gain full transit visibility and tracking after an order has been booked, making it much easier to manage inventory. Buy, ship, and track all in Edge Pipeline. Go to www.montway.com/WS to learn more.
Yeah, we had a guest speaker, Troy Spring. You probably know him. I don't know if I don't think he's a sponsor, but he owns a company called Dealer World, and he's like they do CEO or SEO and search engine optimization, and they look at websites, and he's like, I can't tell you how many times like we go into these stores and we evaluate their websites, and they're like, we want this big video that's scrolling across our website, and he's like, do you realize like the load time is going to tremendously go down, where and he said something that kind of has stuck with me. He goes, you know what the most expensive thing in the world is, Gerald? Ego.
Yeah.
And typically what those dealer videos are on the website is like their dealership, and it's flying all over this, their nice property. You know how much a consumer cares about that? I wouldn't guess a whole lot. However, we've got a client, Beaver Toyota down in Cumming, Georgia, and I was able to stop in there after a conference last week, and I have never been in a store where I didn't want to leave, and I wasn't even there to buy.
It's an impressive facility. They got a restaurant, they got a movie theater.
Between the liquor license, the restaurant, the salon upstairs, the themed rooms. I mean, but my point to that is it's just the consumer experience. I mean, I can, just like in Kansas City, I've got 3 Ford stores in 10 to 15 miles where I could probably get the same price at each of those stores, but it's, how is my experience going to be from the website to, from the person that gives me a call, from me submitting a lead to, how long am I going to have to be there? Like, is there things to do while I'm there? Like,
sure.
So I think that's really going to be where the market's really going to go. I think that's where, not to mention names again, but CarMax and these big conglomerates, I don't think the customer experience is there. I tried to buy a car from CarMax one time, and it was almost like they didn't care, and maybe it's the, they're not commissioned and all that stuff, but it's like, I didn't feel like they actually cared about my needs. It was just, they were trying to turn and burn metal, which I think is what a lot of dealers are doing. And it's the ones that are going to survive are the ones that are going to care about the consumer experience, even if it's going to hurt their bottom line. Like Beaver's, probably spending quite a bit of money on accommodations and stuff like that to make sure that their customers are happy. And it's probably one of the highest volume stores I've stepped foot into.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're super excited to have those guys as partners.
No, that's a great acquisition. And Jeremy, you had a good point, because you can use the analytics to highlight the need to take care of your customers, because a lot of dealerships, I think the most dangerous phrase that you ever hear at a dealership is, we're doing this because it's what we've always done.
Yep.
That doesn't mean it's right,
Yep.
but you have a, I don't know, a reinforcement bias. Hey, this is how we do it. This is the way it works. Well, sometimes it's just a little change. Maybe some small change in how you do the descriptions, maybe a change in how you price the vehicles.
Yep.
You may have priced the vehicles up because, hey, I like this car. It could be a Mazda dealership and you really like Mazda, so you feel the car's worth more. Well, the reality is no, it's not,
Yep.
because it's worth what the customers are willing to pay for it. And if you're
Yeah.
going to sit on the car for 180 days because you feel it's worth it, well, yeah, eventually you'll sell it. But how many deals are you turning away because now that car's worth more than that? I'm not going to take it.
Yeah.
So, there's a balance act. You can use the analytics to drive you to being more customer focused. And, something I think that you guys did that was a really great idea, especially considering that there's only 1.8 million used cars on the ground right now nationwide, way less than there should be. The vehicle buying center idea.
Yep.
It,
Yeah. I
it,
mean, to speak on your first point, just the change, and a lot of these dealers have just become so complacent, just
mhm.
doing the same thing over and over. I think Mark Twain said, the only people that like change are wet babies, and as someone with 3 kids, I don't even believe that,
Yeah,
Gerald. So, it's almost reprogramming a dealer's mind into doing something different. Where, this market in this industry has changed completely from when I sold cars, back in the late 90s. Cash for clunkers. We had, customers just piled up next to a car waiting for
yep,
a salesperson. Where now it's, the inventory is so low that the car sold before it hits the ground, and you've got consumers that, like the real estate market here. I've got a bunch of buddies in real estate, and they've got 10, 15 buyers that just don't have any houses to sell. So
sure.
it's like, it's pretty tough. But to speak on the acquisition piece, so what we've quickly realized, and with these big groups and dealers that we're partnered with, is buying cars from the street is the way they are going to survive. And CarMax, I think Carvana bought 245,000 cars from the public last quarter.
Yeah,
So it's
very
like,
aggressively.
so they are not shy to spend a little more money, because what we've realized is gross, even compared to a street buy in a retail trade, is about 1,700 higher, and it's about 2,500 higher than an auction buy.
Hmm.
Our average auction fee here in Kansas City, is 550 if you're at Manheim, and that's,
When you add them all up, sure.
yeah, and
And
that's
what you
before
have to choose
arbitration.
from is declining greatly. I think the auction's running and still running well less than half of what it would normally. So
Yeah,
you're picking from a smaller crop. You're paying generally about retail for them. And here, the reality is, and this has been true for years, when you go buy something at the auction, unless you're buying something that was a finance return or a program car, you're buying something that another dealership said, yeah, I don't want this one. Send it.
yeah,
So somebody already said, hey, I don't want this car. This may not be the best idea. And you're the last person with your hand up, so you get the car.
yep.
It's usually not a great strategy.
Yeah, we actually, the history tab in our appraisal tool is probably my favorite tab. If I was back on the desk, because
Hmm.
it's a medical record for a car. So we're aggregating this data. So, we're watching where these cars originate from. So if it's a, 14 Toyota Corolla, I can see, Mole Toyota sold it in 14, and it went to Odessa, and then it went to another store, and then it went to 3 different auctions. Where I'm like, if I'm appraising that car, I'm like, why is this thing had so many homes, and why is it
Yeah,
bouncing between 3 or 4 auctions, which would make me a little leery. But yeah, I would say 80% of the cars running through the lane right now are the stuff CarMax doesn't want, the stuff Carvana doesn't want, and the stuff that the big groups and dealers don't want. So
sure.
and it's typically your high volume stuff, your Chevy Malibus. Not saying it's a bad car, but Kansas City is flooded with them, and it's,
Yeah.
it makes it tough, especially, Enterprise drops, 2,000 of them in a market, and then you watch that car you thought you were going to make $4,000 on, go down to $1,000 loser, because the market's just so
Hmm.
saturated with a certain model. So buying from the street, yeah, we're finding these. I mean, you're familiar with Danny and Country Hill Motors. He bought
Sure.
we were traveling, and we get to Atlanta. He's like, hey, can we make a stop? And I'm like, we already had a 2.5 hour drive. And I go, sure. So we drive, and he had a buyer that he found through our vehicle buying center that had a 1969 912.
Oh, really?
I've never seen a 912. I've seen a lot of 911s. Always had a love for Porsches. And this thing was unbelievable. And he got it back here. We took it to Beaver. We had it shipped. And he's probably going to make 14 on the front. When he does sell it after he drives it for a couple months, I'm guessing.
Sure.
So that thing's not running through the lane. And if it is, it's at Barrett auction, and you're going to pay way too much for it. So,
well, I mean, and hey, take a look at this. This is the national market, because I think this lends right to what you guys are talking about, and something that dealerships are going to need to react to.
Yep.
Prior to COVID, over 60% of the used vehicles sold were under $20,000. Going into this year, that's the bottom end of this graph, just barely over 30% of the used vehicles were under $20,000.
Yep.
And I've known for years, your best-selling used cars are the ones between 15 and 24,000. And you can probably slide that back because the interest rates are up right now. You probably want to really turn and burn the cars. You want to be under 21, because you start getting up into the mid 20s with the current APRs. Average used car APR right now, 13.99. You're blowing through your customer's budget. So it's really important to find cars that fit in that price range, and numbers don't lie. There's a lot less of them.
Yeah, I mean, my son, he just got his permit, so I'm looking for a car. And I remember, it seems like it was yesterday, but 5-10 years ago, you could find a decent $5,000-$6,000 car that you could give your son. That thing, today has two wheels and a blown motor, or 300,000 miles. So yeah, and obviously the economy right now, people are kind of holding tight. I mean, we had a friend of ours, build a house, and it took 2 years, and by the time the house was done, the interest rate they thought they had was triple. So their house payment was $800 more a month, which isn't going to help the car market at all. And
no, you'll notice that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching 800 Beacons, leave with new cars at 6%, which is it's just insane to me. Like, I just bought a truck, and never thought I would have this big of a car payment. It was, I stayed in my same price range that I had approval with the wife, but when the rates are triple, it changes things quite a bit.
That makes a huge difference in your buying power.
Yeah.
So something that I know you guys are going to get into to try and help some dealerships, because I mean, here, like I said, numbers don't lie. You have less of the cars in that $20,000 range. So that means by nature, you have more in the $30,000 range. Those are a little bit harder to sell.
Yep.
And VinCue is going to work on something to help dealers kind of move some of that aged inventory and get it out of the lots.
Yeah, so we do everything outside of a dealer CRM and DMS, including digital advertising. So we've really been pushing hard is to help dealers, get underneath or get out from underneath a lot of this stuff that they're underwater in, and using social platforms like Facebook and Instagram. And I had to sign up for TikTok, even though I wasn't.
Okay.
I watch my kids watch it all day long, but car dealers are selling cars and pushing ads that are pretty effective on these platforms. So we use event specific targeting, and it's just getting more eyeballs on the car. So typically, you've been in the business long enough. First thing you do when the car's not selling is what? Lower the price. And the average price drop's $500. So why wouldn't I try to pay my sales guy $250 if he brings his neighbor in with a purchase from the street? Or why not put some ad dollars on that Chevy Malibu that's about to hit 120 days old, and put it on Facebook and drive some eyeballs. We also really started to focus on these the cars that are more rare, and using ad dollars to push those, because we have what's called a proud price or also a high price on a car, because they're unique or they're rare, and you want to get as many eyeballs on it as possible. So.
And is that all done out of the VinCue platform?
It is. So it's all
Okay.
trackable through our system. There's a dashboard that tracks, I mean, down to the cent what you've spent, the impressions you've got per car, how many VDP clicks, and then we actually track once the car actually sells, and then the spin that it takes. So, you know, I was going through one the other day, and it was, you know, the first 3 I saw. I mean, it was like a $46 spend on Facebook, $14 spent on Facebook, $12 spent on Facebook for the car to go by. So.
Yeah, because it's a lot less. When you take a look at social media advertising, a lot of dealerships that are used to doing radio, TV, and here in a decent sized TV market, you want to get a good blanket coverage.
Yep.
You're spending $40,000-$50,000, and you're advertising to a smaller and smaller audience each year because streaming,
Yep.
video on demand, you're not reaching those people.
No,
You're
I would guess
you're really just reaching broadcast local channels, or maybe some cable insert, but that's even not the tool that it used to be, and you're spending a ton of money. You can get a dramatically greater reach on social media than you can doing local TV broadcasting. It's just not even close.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 kids in club sports. One's in high school wrestling. I mean, he's got weights in the morning. He's got,
Mm-hmm.
and I still, you know, I think my average screen time was 5.5 hours, and you know, I do 14 jobs here, and if I'm not
Sure.
here, I'm traveling. So, I mean, you're talking about consumers spending 7-8 hours a day, which is almost the entire time they're not
Full-time
sleeping
job.
on social and on Facebook. Where I can't remember the last time I watched local TV, between, you know, Peacock and Netflix and all these streaming services I'm paying for, where I feel like I'm obligated to watch those. Where last time I checked, I haven't seen a car commercial run through a Netflix series or
No.
you know, and maybe that comes one day. But for now, yeah, not the way to do business in some of these smaller markets. I mean, we were talking the other day. There's a store up in, I think, Oregon, and they do really, really well with newspapers still, which is
Really?
like,
Wow.
but just their demographic is an older demographic, and they like to read the newspaper. So they you know, put their lease programs in the newspaper, and they drive traffic. So, but a lot of that traditional media is you know, it's slowly starting to, the ROI is just slowly deteriorating. Where these social platforms. Yeah, I mean, I have some rental properties, and I can spend $50 boosting an ad. You know, I have some properties down in the Ozarks before, you know, the shootout or before some boat race, and book my stuff up and raise the price before I do it to pay for the ad. So it's like, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, and that's something that's going to happen, because we're already seeing, depending on the brand you're at, it's really a tale of two worlds right now in the automotive sphere. If you're at a Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram dealership right now nationally, they have an average of 130 days supply on the ground ready to sell. They're taking up to $12, $15, $13,000 off of Rams, just depending on the trim level. And the number that amazed me, because this isn't a bad car, Jeep Renegades.
Yeah.
Right now, there is a 770-day supply of Jeep Renegades on the ground. So you go to your Honda, your Subaru, your Toyota dealership, even a Chevy dealership for certain vehicles, they're not there. It may be a 2-3 month wait to get one. And when you do get one, you better be open to the color and the trim level, because the dealership may only be getting one.
You
go to a Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram dealership. Hey, what do you want? Here you go. We got it. And that's going to start trickling down to the used cars. So you'll start getting some used models that are going to have significant drops in their market value and significant price drops, and other ones that are still selling for significantly over sticker. It's really going to be a very weird market for at least another couple of years.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, Chrysler, they make good products. I think what they failed to do was just position themselves as that, you know, that brand that was not going to make their consumers pay, you know, $10,000 over sticker. And, you know, they have a good warranty. I mean, I just bought a truck, and I considered that I love the Rebel. But I still went with the Trail Boss just because I'm a GM guy. But I think they've just and it's sad for the Chrysler dealers because they're the ones that suffers, with this inventory, and they're having to write down their new stuff. And yeah, I mean, every Chrysler store I've driven by is loaded with cars, and not a lot of customers. So
no,
but
amazingly,
I also think they haven't done a whole lot to innovate, as far their EV mark or their EV reaches. I'm not
no,
sure
it's
they
not there
have.
yet.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
They have plug-in hybrids. There's a
Yeah,
Pacifica
but
plug-in hybrid, a Wrangler plug-in hybrid, but yeah, no, they're actually losing and winning because they have the biggest supply of parts. They've been able to keep creating cars, and
yep,
unfortunately, even sometimes when Chrysler wins, they lose.
yep,
But
yep,
it just shows how you have to be willing to be flexible to adapt. Here, use a wrestling analogy, to change levels,
yep,
because you're going to have to move to where the customers are. And I really have been impressed with VinCue because the product does allow you to do that. I mean, it's right there, face validity. You see the numbers, and it's built in, telling you, hey, you have to adapt. You're going to have to try a different move in order to win.
yep. Yeah, I mean, we got a nice email, and I can't mention names, but it's a big group that we've been working with for 7 months now. So he sent us this long email, and it was basically just their experience year over year. Their gross profit went from 2203 a copy in January to 3369 in April, and they sold 62 more used cars year over year that first 4 months, and it was because Boost, and it was because they were buying the right stuff. Most importantly, like the insights that we give with the buying plan, and with us just aggregating the world. If I'm a small Toyota store and I've got a bigger one near me, or I've got a CarMax, I can just search them, look what they're stocking, look what they're turning in a week or two, and just start buying that stuff. Where some of these stores, I think they just get so used to buying what they're used to buying. And if I'm a Chevy store, I'm just looking for stuff I can certify. Where maybe you're a Chevy store, but Ford Explorers are selling all over the place, and you don't have any. Why are you not going after that market? You can sell service, and potentially gain a service customer. So yeah, you're right. I mean, and when coronavirus hit, I think dealers did two things. They put their tail between their legs, and the other guys were like, let's push the gas. And you can tell the guys that pushed the gas, which were the big groups, and the guys that knew this thing was gonna bounce back. And I'm a big Warren Buffett guy. It's like when there's blood in the water, it's time to eat. And those guys ate, and they're eating now. So and Beaver Toyota and some of these dealers like Rob Ruth Ford are perfect examples. Like I think Bob Ruth Ford's in Dillsburg, PA. It's like population of like 1,200 people or something.
Yeah,
and the guy's he's moving 300-400 new Fords a month. He's selling 300 used. He's buying over 100 from the public. So it's like when these dealers are like, we're in a small market, that's why we're not doing well. And I'm like, yeah, you're not doing the right things.
You can take a look at his social, and once you see the dealership, I think you'll be really surprised because they definitely outkick their coverage. They fight above their class because it's not an impressive looking dealership at all. It's basically kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they're pumping out 500-600 cars. So it does show a lot that attitude and drive can make a huge difference.
Yep. And I think a lot of what'll help, not no down talk on the older generation in the car business. I just turned 40. Is some of the younger generation that are starting to take over. The sons taking over the stores. I think is going to help tremendously because they're more open-minded. I think because some of these dealers just they get brainwashed, and they get tunnel vision with some of the tools that they've been using for a decade, and they don't see another way until the stores close. So I think that'll help from just across the board. I think technology. I mean, this chat GPT stuff and this AI stuff is just it's unbelievable. Like I'm using it to write my emails. I'm using it to write sales training. I'm using it.
Sure.
We've got dealers using chat GPT to write descriptions on vehicles. Write me a description on a 2022 Toyota Camry LE, and
there it is.
copy and paste where, typically that would have took me, 30 minutes a car to, get it photoed and get a description written.
So there's a new tool coming to VinCue, right?
There is.
But no, in all honesty, I know you did just add build sheets.
We did
recently. So
yep.
There's other services out there, no names, that are selling access to original factory window stickers built into VinCue, no extra charge. You can actually pull the original build sheet and incorporate it right into the description. It takes like 10 seconds.
Yep. Yes, we're aggregating about 40,000 stickers currently. We've got, I think, 21 million. However, there's, as you know, there's quite a few. I think there's 100+ million, but it's super valuable, and we could charge for them. But the more value we can give our customer, obviously, the stickier our product is. And when I sold cars for Cecil Van Tile before they were bought out, I always remember they had a sign in our sales training room, and it was like, people don't care until they know you care. So, and I think a lot of businesses and a lot of software companies have forgotten that. It's like, what are you giving? What value are you giving to the dealer? Like, what are you providing to help them move cars or help increase their gross and decrease their churn, instead of just shoving products down their throat, which I think a lot of vendors have done over the years. So I think you're going to have to to survive in this industry on either side of the fence. One, you're going to have to be tactful, and two, it's going to have to be more consumer experience and what's good for the actual consumer, even if that's profit margins going down. I mean, look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos was criticized for how long, because they're like, all of his shareholders were like, what are you doing? Like, this is costing us all this money. You're all about the seller and this and that. And, last time I checked, that guy's doing okay. So.
Yeah, he's doing okay. Yeah. That's the paradox of thrift. Sometimes you're trying to save money and save profit. You end up costing yourself money. Well, here we got the Dealership Rescue Championship belt here. Just wind it down with your championship round. You probably already kind of said it, but what would you say? What's the championship idea coming from VinCue next? What do you think the next big thing is?
So the vehicle, it ties into the vehicle buying center. So we're creating a complete network to acquire cars, not just from the auction and not just from private parties, but also from dealers. So we're creating a dealer-to-dealer network, which will allow dealers to participate. And it basically gives visibility into that dealer's inventory and how old it is and what they're listing it for. Where if I'm a Ford store and I've got another Ford store down the street, I can see, anytime any of his inventory hits 61 days old, where he's, he'd rather not write it down. And maybe I offer him, something that's decent enough for him to buy it. And then I'm adding a car. So the dealer network is going to be big for us. But just the vehicle buying center in general has gotten guys away from the auction, and bottom lines have improved. Would be our big win right now.
Well, the dealer-to-dealer idea is a great idea too. It's something that all the big groups do too with internal auctions. And that's a great idea. And then brought to you by Montway Auto Transport. You could use those guys. They could transport some cars for you from dealership to dealership. But,
yes, they can.
And then I know you said your son's in wrestling and you wrestled some. What's your favorite wrestling memory?
So I pulled off a Saturday night ride or Saturday night special on a guy in my second match, which they don't even teach anymore. And you may have remembered it. It's basically they can't do much. You block their legs, and I pinned them in 28 seconds. It was my second match ever. I had never wrestled until high school. I ran track and played football, and I had a buddy's like, man, you gotta come try out at least and come practice with us. And I was just a little 135 guy and really enjoyed it. My dad was a state champion. My son is a freshman, 6'2", he's walking around about 158 pounds already. He's 7-0. His first year, went to state. Didn't place, but I mean, the fact that he was,
just getting there
7-8 months into wrestling ever, we took him to state and he competed, and I mean, he made it through a few rounds without getting pinned. So it's been very, very exciting for me to watch him grow. And as all these kids are sleeping during their summers or on Fortnite, he's getting dropped off at weights at 7:30, and he's got wrestling camp at 6 p.m. and then we're doing tournaments every chance we get. So
That's intense. You get into the club sports and get into a sport like wrestling, the time is absolutely very demanding. Well,
yeah,
hey, and
but
there's a
yeah, but
lot of
this
time demands in sales too.
there is absolutely. Yeah, this is the discipline alone. I mean, wrestling I think is
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite sports of all time.
Oh
Just
yeah.
because it's a community that he's never been a part of. He's kind of been a kind of shy kid like I was. He's come out of his shell. He goes to Staley High School. I mean, there's 110 kids on that team. There's only so many weight classes, so he's getting to compete with kids that have been wrestling since they were 8, and kids that that have qualified state, and so
Yeah.
it's been awesome to watch.
Yeah. Great. And despite being a newer school, great athletic history for Staley. So
Yeah,
that's a really neat program to be involved in. And, you know, wrestling, amateur wrestling in Missouri has really been huge and really some of the best in the country.
yeah, yeah. We actually have we hired a guy. He was a 2-time state champion from Nebraska. So I've got him. He's coaching my son.
Okay.
He's one of the coaches at Platte County High School. Johnny Blankenship. He's just a 24-year-old guy, but he's got a couple gold medals from state. Almost went to the Olympics, and so to have him even around as such a young kid, the discipline that he came and brought to his
Hmm.
company is, I'm guessing, he came from his wrestling background and the discipline, the hard work he put in.
Sure. Yeah. You know how to work, right? You have to keep grinding away and there's no excuses because at the end, it's you against one other person. So you
Yep,
have to figure out a way to win. And that's
absolutely.
true so much in sales. It really, even with all the tools, with all the support system, it ends up being one and one, and you need to have the drive to make it work, be it as a manager or as a salesperson. And Jeremy, hey, thanks a lot for taking the time to
Yes, sir,
step
Gerald.
in and tell us about some of the stuff that VinCue offers. What's the best way to reach you?
So you can reach me on my cell. So my cell phone number is area code 417-319-8530. You can also reach me at Jeremy with 2 E, so Jeremy at DealerQ, and that's DealerCue.com. And then you
Okay.
can find us on just VinCue.com, so VinCue.com. It shows all of our product lineups. You can request a demonstration. But there's a ton of value as well. There's a road to buying 100 cars from the public that you can download, where it's got pay plans and processes. So even if you're not ready to make a move or make any change, we still love to provide value to the community and just the industry we love, which is automotive.
No, that's great. And we'll have all that in the description as well. Hey, thanks again for stepping into the ring here on Wrestling with Sales. Appreciate it. Talking about a little bit of a different side of the industry than we usually do.
Absolutely, Gerald. I appreciate you having me.
Sure. Thanks.
Have a good one.